La 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 la. La 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 la. Get that voice in there. Wait a minute. Newspaper and review I read concerning. Okay. 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 It's about two more sentences. Okay. All right, give me the signal. I gotta take this cap off. The following morning, Ray and I talked to one another either through the air vent or standing at the point of our cells. We passed notes back and forth when not wanting to be overheard. We had started talking while waiting for breakfast.
Hang on, let's We're gonna go back to that spot.
Okay.
Let me pull this so it's not in the way of your book.
The following morning, Ray and I talked to one another either through the air vent or standing at the front of our cells. We passed notes back and forth when not wanted to be overheard. We had started talking while waiting for breakfast. The 20-man confinement cell block had been quiet. After eating, Ray and I were at our cell doors talking back and forth, whispering quietly. Our heads were only 5 feet apart. I was asking him about the questions he had not answered fully, or told me that he would discuss them or he would write me later about the details. Naturally, these were the questions I wanted answered most, and were definitely the ones he avoided most, at least in giving me written answers. As other convicts woke, sink and commodes operated and men began talking, Ray and I abandoned conversation, both because we could not hear one another and others would hear us. He started writing answers again. I saw that once again I wouldn't get the fully explained reply I sought. Yet many doors to other areas of his life were opening, and I would have to be patient and let answers come however they must. Fortunately, Ray talked the guards into giving him an afternoon yard call, which he spent outside my window. He spent an hour and a half answering a single question. He actually told me a story for me to know the man and understand his thinking. These stories allowed me to build a profile and see patterns of his action throughout his life, which did indeed connect him to some of the activities he had always avoided, absent or admitted his involvement to. Shockingly, he admitted that he had traveled extensively to Washington repeatedly and had been sponsored by Senator James Eastland. He had heard FBI tapes of Martin Luther King and John Kennedy. He knew Richard Nixon and had his help in getting the federal charges against him thrown out of court twice. These were new revelations to me. I had started this whole thing with Ray, thinking with the impressions of Ray, which I learned 100% from the media, TV, newspaper, and the reviews I had read concerning the movie Mississippi Burning. Prior to my dealings with him personally, I believed Ray to be a poorly educated Southern country slang talking, circuit preaching redneck, a screaming advocate of racism against blacks, a radical crazed KKK leader. What I discovered so far was that he was educated, and before purchasing his lumber mill, he had a dairy farm and had applied to take the Mississippi State Bar exam. He had planned a career in law, yet something had completely discouraged him from that goal. He had succeeded and prospered in private business. He had 2 great lifelong marriages. He knew the Bible and had most of it memorized and followed the Christian doctrine as his belief. He had defended himself for a lifetime from the top government and law enforcement agency which attempted to prosecute him. I was now able to see the person Ray as an individual, and the facts were adding up to show why he was that way. I had felt real positive about my story portraying Ray as I saw him as I made notes and outlined the story I would write. I now knew many truths, many facts about Edgar Ray Killen and his life that most others did not know. I was sure that there would be others interested enough about him, history, the murders, and how it affected the families of those involved to find the book interesting enough to read. There was lots of difference in our country's view of racism and politics, not as compared to the views of Ray's generation. However, Ray seemed to purposely hide part of him on a personal level. Those secrets and his effort to conceal them became overly exposed by his continued effort to write not them, but still verbally answer them. He was playing with my head, so the rule of fair play were mine to return him as he was to me. What started all this stuff with civil rights that you are involved in? You keep talking about communist Jews, but you also bring up old stuff about Mississippi history, things before the Jews became an issue in civil rights. Can't you give me a straight answer rather than these half ones where you say you'll write more detail later? Ray made a quick statement, defensive and direct. I sort of felt as though he was putting me in my place as he spoke. The damage the Jews did start way before they came to Mississippi. Need I remind you that they tortured and crucified the Savior of the world? They killed the only Son of God. They killed he who was one of them, the king. They murder, steal, corrupt, and they are the ones with a secret society. Within just a few years, all of you will see our economy fail and another Great Depression. Fortunes will be lost and banks will fail. The regular citizen will suffer. The Jews will prosper on the losses of others. I interrupted him. He had raised his voice and his facial expression were as angry as his words were of hate. I spoke softly. Mr. Ray, I really understand about your feelings about the Jews, but you tell me more about some of the history of Mississippi you have lived through. I know you were here in the 1920s and your family in the 1850s. As I mentioned those dates, he claimed he calmed, then smiled, and he started talking in a calmer manner. He became a great storyteller. And with all that he said, he spoke as if what he said was indisputable historic fact. I listened carefully, taking notes of what he said. The whole South, our Confederacy, was destroyed by the Civil War. But the belief of the South live on, and now those same beliefs are acknowledged worldwide. You read some of my mail. I told you, I am not against the blacks, yet look at cities like our own country's capital, Washington, D.C. The blacks have turned it into ghettos of violence, just like our state capital here, Jackson, and just like they do everywhere they live. They live like heathens, without morals and values, and all of them are out to kill the white man and his culture, to mix their lesser bloodline with our superior one, to upgrade their race. After the Civil War, the South was trying to heal from the scars of Reconstruction. The federal government sent carpetbaggers, politicians, and state police to run the South. They stole our homes, property, and business. They made laws to fit the scheme they used to ruin us. The government hired the Pinkerton to infiltrate and intimidate us, to enforce the laws made by the war profiteers. Our mothers, wives, daughters were raped and kidnapped and taken up north. It was terrible. The South and good Caucasian Christians were made slaves to the South and Yankees who said they were against slavery. This happened to our Caucasian parents and grandparents. Back then, before telephones and TV, the communities usually only met on church days, and most Southern preachers were the old-time Bible thumping, fundamentalists preaching that old-time religion. It was the church deacons, the community leaders, who got together to do whatever was needed to protect the community and families. A lot of times from the Northerners who had made themselves the judges and sheriffs. Eventually, the good Southerners were labeled vigilantes for taking the law into their own hands. Eventually, they changed also because Yankees started arresting preachers and church members. That is, when secret groups started doing things, men sworn to silence not only their word, but also on the Bible. These men were the backbone of the communities. When all the civil rights publicity started, Mississippi had James Eastland in office. He knew that the communist Jews were making their strong moves to infiltrate our country and nation's government. He warned us about how the Jews were hiring the niggers and helping the Russian spies. He proved how they were still trying to stop Christianity and was Christ killers, all of Satan's army to destroy our country. The charges on me from 1964 aren't for killing civil rights workers. I'm charged for killing the enemy soldiers, Russian Jew collaborators who came to destroy my family, home, race, and religion. For this reason, I am a political prisoner and am guilty of nothing. I am doing prison time for convictions of manslaughter of communist Jew soldiers who were registered communists. I am a true American. I am not afraid to stand up for what is right. I do not believe in the communist Jewish religion and politics. I am not so blind as most of this generation. I see how America, once world leaders, are now shunning and looking down on. I see our young people lost in drugs, crime, sex, and our prisons and asylums are full. Corrupt politicians are daily news. Queers are in charge of large parts of our society, and governments, we are losing another civil war. Kids are parentless, medically uninsured, and we are told that Social Security is going broke. He stopped, smiled, and then said, if anyone is so stupid that they can't see what communism is doing, then they are stupid and ignorant. You are an intelligent man, you know it, and you see how even in here it is a communist-run system. It's always is. It boils down right versus wrong, democracy versus communism, Christian versus Jews, or white versus black. As you can see, the blacks run the prison system, but none of the niggas run Edgar Ray Killen. Do they run you? I replied in a way he would understand. Looking directly at him, I said, Ray, this isn't about me, it's about you. You asked me to write this, and I am. I'm not the issue and not wanting to debate or argue. I think I'll go do some writing. Talk to you later. I returned to my rap. I pulled out my file on the story and started reviewing the questions and answers where I'd ended on 10/21/07. Again, I had not let Ray put me into his same lifelong debate and issues as he has once again attempted. Again, I could see how Ray operated. His whole life, his world revolved around these issues and his principles and past action. I could see without a doubt that if he could convince me of them, he would recruit me as he did so many as a supporter, follower, even as one of his congregation members. I understood that if I did these things, accepted his philosophy, I would then be in good standing with the church, preacher, community, and American Christianity if I did not. I would probably be included with the communist Jews, Satan, and all else bad, at least through the eyes of Ray. He believed that a person was either 100% with him or 100% against him. I was learning how things worked in his mind, and most probably had for decades. In the pages of questions I was reviewing, there were many specific questions, dates and details. I had asked him to clear up, and he intentionally withheld answers to or did not fully explain the answers. Question: when and where were you born? Answer: January 17, 1925. I was born in Neshoba County, Mississippi. I am now 82 years and 10 months old. Question: when did you get injured by a tree falling on you? Answer: I was injured on March 10, 2005. A small tree about 6 inches round fell and hit me directly on top of my head. It crushed part of my skull in about 2 inches deep, and my head about to double in size due to the swelling. They thought my neck was broken. I was standing straight, and that small oak tree was about 50 feet up, lodged in another tree. It fell out. It was about 70 feet long, 75 feet long. The tree hit only my head. It broke both of my legs. My right leg was broke close to the top of the leg in 3 places, and my left broke in 2 places. Also, my pelvic bone was broke in 2 places, top to the bottom. So now I have pins in both my legs and from my hip on both sides to my pelvis. That's why I'm still in a wheelchair. The doctor did not operate on my head. The skull pushed in its own self back into shape. They had me in court on June 2005, less than 3 months after the injury, and I was not able mentally or physically. My brain damage keeps me even now from being able to help file these papers. Every word of his answer sounded as though he was reciting it from memory or repeatedly using it. My legal mind told me of an accident which almost stopped his trial and could be a perfect ground for a successful appeal. For a second time, I realized just how well Ray covered himself with ideal situations, ideal answers, even a novel to use in a future appeal. I wondered if I could come out of the game. Pawn check. Here's a shocker for you. I worked in the lumber business for a living. I pastored many churches for over 50 years. I practiced law for 10 to 12 years. I just don't trust lawyers, so that is why I quit. I was 2 weeks from the bar exam, and I went out and bought a sawmill and never went back to a court a day, and that was in the late 60s. On October 22nd, 2007, I received the following note from Ray. Hello, friend, are you having a good day? I have been reading or sleeping all day. I am kind of having a down day. They bought mail early today. Mine usually come after dark. I heard from Germany, Austria, Finland, Florida, and Mississippi. I got 3 letters from my baby doll. If I go to the news media, will it hurt my case in federal court? My appeal. Do you have any new source folks that would give us a fair deal? So far, the writer and TV has pronounced me guilty without even knowing me. I can't get a Mississippi lawyer who will sue them for fear of reaction of blacks. This is personal, so forgive me. I hope your day has been better than mine. However, my day could be worse. God does not like me to carry my burdens, but I'm too stubborn to do exactly right and leave it all to Him. Thanks for your friendship. Write me when you feel like it. I reread this 1-page red letter slowly. It affected me deeply than before. I had to stop and immediately get everything into proper perspective. I felt very small. I was trying so hard to write Ray's story, to ask questions, get answers, hear stories, and take notes, that I had overlooked the most important thing. Sitting in a wheelchair locked in a very maximum security, solitary confinement cell, with a full-time camera watching him, was an 83-year-old man, a man whom had been sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison, a man who believed society hated him, a husband separated from his loving wife, a white supremacist living in a captive in an African-American community, a lonely man, a man who just told me, thank you for being my friend, asking me to write him if I got time, sounding so deserted, so alone, a convict brother, my neighbor. I asked myself, how many times had I needed a friend or needed forgiveness? I had felt forgotten by the world. Since I had met him, he fed me, offered his time, his answers. He offered me his friendship and prayers. He told of his wonderful life, his wonderful wife, baby doll. He, like every convict, could see the possibilities of again being free, and he lived for that. It was his purpose. He had included me in his last desperate attempt to get freedom. I asked myself, what would Jesus do in my position with Ray? Surely forgive him and love him. Ray believed in God, in the Bible, in Jesus Christ, the resurrection and forgiveness of sin. He prayed and had preached a lifetime. I was reading letters from his congregation members, people he brought to Christ, baptized and married. Again, his wishes. He'd even preached the sermon of the funeral of his judge's dad. I walked to the sink and quietly tapped 3 times. He replied quickly, "Hey, son, what are you doing up so late?" I answered quietly as I folded my pillow, making a pad to sit on as I leaned against the wall, my mouth at the vent. "Oh, I couldn't sleep and thought I'd see if you were up." He answered, sounding glad to talk. "Son, I bet you're hungry. What you want to eat?" "Ray, I'm snacking on cookies already, but thanks. I was thinking about some of your answers and have a few questions." "Well, that's fine, son. Start talking." "Ray, are you sure you're going to heaven?" "Yep, 100% sure, and the sooner the better." "Then if you sin, you've been forgiven 100%, right?" I asked. "Yep, 100%. Ray responded without hesitation. "I've already made amends." "Is there anything that you want to talk about? I mean, off the record, just us talking man to man, convict to convict, and Christian to Christian?" Ray hesitated, replying for maybe a minute. I sat there, my ears on the vent, waiting. I wanted him to know that he could talk openly to me about anything, especially anything to do with his soul. It hit me suddenly. He is 83, sick, and could die at any moment. What if I was the last one Edgar Ray talked to? What if he told me his secrets or confessed his past deeds? Ray's voice through the vent, sounding so sincere. "Son, thanks for showing some compassion on an old man. My letter must have got to you. I didn't mean to bother you. I was just feeling down a little. All those years you've done in a cell by yourself has let you grow quite a bit in certain ways. You're way ahead of us, son, especially on all those hours of praying and being in the Bible. You know people real good, and you're a fantastic judge of human nature and character. You live with a million. You know yourself, so you know God. They said you were like this, but I'm glad I found out for myself. You just write the book however you want. I'm a good man and done a lot of good. You tell them about the side of me. You tell them about this side of me. Tell them about my good side. All that the Jews let anyone have in the media is bad news and bad things and too much sensationalization. That is all they ever did. Hurt me, hurt my wife and my family, and hurt my friends. You know I have lots of people that love and care about me. You know I love God, Jesus Christ, and that's been my life. I've never used my own hands to do violence. I love America. You tell them this side of my life so that I'll have a good record to oppose all the bad that they've accused me of. Then a person can make a judgment on me for what I am, not lies and rumors. Mr. Ray, can I write what you just like you said it? He laughed and replied, I thought this stuff was off the record, late night friend talk. You got me on that, Ray, I answered truthfully. Yeah, word for word, that's fine. I want that said in my book. Okay, Mr. Ray, I replied. Ray, let's put the story aside and talk man to man, Christian to Christian, convict to convict. I care for you and I really believe you're a good man and preacher. I believe what you tell me. Yet in all the important aspects of this novel story, You still hold back on telling me how it all really went down. You had one convict lie to you. You may get a new trial. So I understand your hesitancy to talk about Ray. I could make up lies now with all you written and he believed. So why not allow me at least the truth, full truth in private? I'll never repeat a word of it unless you authorize me to do so by request. My interest and curiosity is getting out of control. I deserve to know. You're right, son. You're right. Are you comfortable? It's a long story. He talked to me until breakfast, and I was unable to sleep after. I was too stunned from all he had told me. I did not want it to be the truth, yet I knew that it was. For the next 3 days, I worked diligently on the book, taking naps only when I fell asleep. Ray got deeply involved by answering questions and filling in the blanks as I wrote. I in cell number 12 and he in cell number 11. In those several hours, he spoke for at least 30. I was glad there was no charge for using our cell phone vent a phone. Many of his verbal answers to me were much more thorough than his written ones. I discussed this with him, explaining how I needed him to write these details in his story. Ray, I am at a point in this book where I will have a question and answer format and will include some questions about the stories you've told me. I want to follow those written questions and answers by our verbal discussions of them whenever possible. How does that sound to you? He replied quickly and with a slight edge of sharpness in his voice. He made an argument that some of that stuff we discussed never goes in any book. That some of stuff was private, just between us. I answered, I'll never repeat anything you said was confidential. That's between us, two convicts, two friends. I just mean to include what you add to your written answers to fill in details. Well, if I get to check over it and I approve, that's fine. Ray's emotions changed from day to day, caused by his health and age, but mostly by the effects of living under the strain of maximum security conditions and how it operated. I was a veteran of institutional living and was strained to new limits living in conditions identical to his. Ray seemed to be in a deeper inner conflict, which he tried to keep well hidden. But the excesses of his trauma that I felt he was unaware of poured out from him more and more as he became closer. On several occasions, verbal and written, he accused me of asking the same questions that the media had asked him. He would refuse to give me written answers, but would later include exact details I'd asked for in another of his responses. Rather than allow it to cause me strife, I was learning how to deal with him. I did have a problem adjusting myself to deal with Ray's fluctuating moods and attitude. He fully believed he was a prophet type strength and ability and wanted the respect due him for it. He seemed convinced that he had his gift or ability in his biblical spiritual role and aspect, and his leadership status of segregation and symbol of leadership role to all those who supported the communist beliefs. I had yet to see those distinctions as claimed he deserved. I did fully acknowledge his extremely talented communication skills and his giving his all dedication to his cause. Ray was and is the ultimate survivor. He had no give up, or back up, or surrender in him. I was far from expert on many of the facets of Ray that he was recognized for. Yet I was learning more and more than most who knew him personally. That evening, when the metal door of the hallway slammed closed behind the officer during count, Ray tapped on the sink and said, "Are you up, my good white Christian brother?" His reply sounded troubled, as though he was confused or in a very deep mode of contemplation. Son, you read the newspaper and seen the TV news. You know they say I'm the most hated person alive. Worse than bin Laden, hated as much as Hitler and Saddam Hussein. I faced that hate for over 40 years. I haven't done anything illegal in all those years past. I've been preaching, running businesses, and heading a home and family. I've helped the blacks and whites, yet most of them hate me. Didn't ever know me, but voted me most hated. I preached the gospel of Jesus Christ, and they hated me as they did now. Now they slowly torture and crucify me. Don't you see that? Surely you must. I replied, telling Ray what I've concluded to the point I was presently at in my involvement and understanding of all that included him. There was no doubt that even my own opinion of him was negatively slanted, but I had met him. Before I had met him. Ray, I see and feel some of what you're going through, but I see it as a result of your past actions, not including anything about the 1964 murders. You repeatedly contradict yourself, the Bible and the U.S. Constitution, therefore making yourself a target for hate. You profess Christianity and Bible totally and have dedicated 40 years to preaching, which includes loving your neighbor as yourself, doing to him as you want done to you, and that all men are created in the image of God. Then you say you're a segregationist and you believe blacks are a less intelligent race than your own. You and I know that word nigger spoken by a white is a derogatory put-down remark, yet you use it regularly. Ray, it's those things which cause lots of what has happened to you. You are affiliated to a group who terrorize and kill because of racial hatred. It's very conflicting and confusing, even to me. He replied much more confidently than when the conversation had started. Son, you still see it as a racial. And I interrupted him. Ray, let's get this straight. The KKK is about racist issues, and 99% of your issues are KKK related. He replied, okay, then go back in the Bible to the difference in the Jews and Gentiles. Remember, the Jews killed Jesus. Again, I interrupted. Ray, are you going to use the Bible in excuses for hating and having prejudice? We know it stands for good and righteousness, but will it also be the negative and hurtful? Don't talk bad about the Bible, he exclaimed loudly. I replied in kind, don't live bad of the Bible. Try to feel the pain of being a slave or a minority. If you say they are of simple mind, then they feel as a disabled does. Because their brain is less. Is their spirit less? Does God not love them equally? The God who created in his image? I tell you this, he said in an intimidating, threatening tone of voice. Lots of your views aren't white enough for me. So maybe it's best we end this discussion. You write my story, lots of people believe me, especially the old ones. I answered, you're right, Ray, but my voice is white. I am a white man. If I differ from another, I'll solve it as a man does, not with a gang about the instructions of others. You say whites white and blacks black, yet you mix the two in your translation of the scriptures. I don't agree with you, and I believe as I choose to. Years ago, Christians were killed by Romans, but man progressed. Even today, people of different religions kill one another, lots of time over property or politics. Are lives worth it? Is it worth it for you to be in here, in your golden years of retirement, away from your wonderful wife, with those solemn oaths between clan members so sacred, every one of them has told on each other over the years? All but you, Ray, and it is your choice to tell or not. He cursed me vehemently. What he answered, and his last words were not going in any book I wrote. I did not say it to him in return, but on that night I felt it toward him. Later I felt I made a bad mistake, pushing him as I did, rather than getting him to open up. I had made him angry. I wanted to do his book and was already deeply into it. I hope tomorrow we could continue. I realized I would have to change my approach drastically so that he would work with me and not against me. It was evident that Ray had the belief of being 100% with him or you would be his enemy. I did not want that under any circumstances with anyone, especially Ray, though he could do no physical harm to me. Sadly, it was this attitude that he carried and made a lot of people react negatively to him. I knew he thrived on controversy and was a skilled debater. I was beginning to wonder if his rush came from the extreme doses of hate that he poured toward and into himself as reactions from others. Maybe like all addictions, his dosage needs and increased continuously. The monkey he had carried on his back had no clear color, but had been around as long as recorded history. His whole situation was odd, strange to me. He was only in prison for conspiring to murder done over 40 years ago. Though it was a heinous crime, he had stayed legal since then. I compared that with the fact that I live with and next to much more violent and criminally insane people. For 14 months prior to my being locked down, I slept less than 10 feet from a man who had chopped the heads off both of his parents. 30 feet away was a man convicted of molesting his own grandchildren for decades. I had been with the most predatory, most criminally insane, most violent during my decade of incarceration. I already believed that Ray surely had a greater capacity to do evil than any of them. But Ray was hated worse than either of them. I knew they were despised for the crime they did. Whereas Ray was hated not only for the crime he was charged with, but also for being associated with a racially motivated group. I realized that Ray was really hurting and had defended himself by trying to hurt me. It occurred to me that he may feel guilty, for guilt was a byproduct of hurt and hate. Chapter 6. The next morning he spoke greetings, but not much else. I worked on the book by listing written questions, answers, and adding his comments after them. These are from 10/25/07. Question: how are you today? What's going on? Can you give me a good story for the book? Hi, son. It's been a crazy day. The staff have been raining hell since 4 a.m. I received a rule violation report for not being dressed. Yet they picked up uniforms a half hour before to send to the laundry. Normal BS from CMCF. Question: did you get served with an actual written violation? I did. That nigga bitch captain is always writing me up. But so far, I've beaten each of her charges. I got one of my newspapers from the 16th today. The paper came to Jackson the night of the 16th, and I'm just now getting it. I believe they are holding them in the mailroom. It doesn't take 9 days for my newspaper to come 2 miles. Question: can you tell me about the speech you made on buying the media? Or show me some evidence about your accusation, things that are in your transcript? I do not have my trial transcript. Tattoo had them down in his cell and is writing my post-conviction to the Supreme Court. My lawyer did me absolutely no good. I am a political prisoner. The German movement has me listed as a prisoner of war. I am anti-communist from day one. They, through the communist Jews, control the money of the world. They dominate and own the news media. In my speeches over 50 years ago, I told the people of America who owned the news media and suggested we get someone, an official, and get the conservative Christians of the South to send $1 or whatever every payday, they would receive stock from whichever network we bought. And sooner or later, we would control 51 cents of a newspaper. We could soon have control and could name the network and demand they play fair with the Christians in the South. But these regular people, regular folks, just look at you and don't know what you're telling them. I know you are going to be disappointed with me, but I'm not guilty as charged. I never advocated killing Jews. I wanted to put them out of business, but not by not buying their products their company makes and produces. I looked at the bag of Maxwell House coffee. It's owned by Jews' money. At the bottom of the bag is a symbol that is their symbol, and it must be on any product a Jew buys. Question, verbal. Do you think the public should investigate your claim about communist Jews' ownership of media and products as citizens decide if it is okay or not? I say don't buy products from communists if you are in America. I say Christians, please don't support Jewish markets. They do not believe that Jesus Christ lived. They accept no gift for murdering him in cold blood. They try to stop Christianity. It makes no sense to support them when we have products produced by Christians and of a democratic society. I tell all my good white Christian brothers to listen. I'm of the old school, but I give you experience and wisdom from our united cause. I wouldn't be here long, but I fought our cause as a soldier all my life. I am a political prisoner of war. Read this story, investigate every word I say. There is no lie. They made me, all of us, the headline for a reason. Why were the feds already involved and supposed to be watching the three that were killed? Why did Washington notify us about these communists coming? Why did the government cover it up? One day all of the communist and Jews conspiracy will come out. I explained to Ray that I needed him to stay focused on the answer to the question because he wasn't being precise and causing double questions of the same subject. To this, he told me that he had so much to tell and it was all connected. I explained to Ray that he needed to fill in the lines between dots so that the story flowed. After a coffee break and discussion about Western novel, we went back to work on the questions and answers. Question, what would you say or do if you own media? How would you run things differently? Answer, I let it be based on sharing good news, helping people. I let it speak for the everyday citizen. Our forefathers came to America for a lot of reasons, mainly to not be ruled by a king, dictator, or communist government. If a man, his church, or community decided it wanted to be of his faith, or that under the God as Christians, they could do it and not let other religions invade, conquer, or force them into other beliefs. Some chose democracy rather than communism. I believe in the Christian faith and democracy, and therefore I am against communism and do not choose any other belief. I will do all, as always, have to stand up for the United States of America, for the Constitution. I will fight our enemies, the communists, and I will always oppose the Jews who killed Jesus Christ, the only Son of God, who still deny Christianity and Christ, and hid their demonic cult behind secrecy and vows to hide plans to destroy humanity. They are actually named Jews of Jewish faith, yet also a nationality. Yet everywhere it is worldwide known that the word Jew means stingy, crafty, cunning, and they kill their own king, Jesus Christ, who was sent to them by God. by the hands of Judas. Another reference to Jude, the snitch who sold out a king. Should I want them in my home or church, school, or part of my community business association? No, I do not, and should have the choice to stand up for these beliefs, to fight for what my ancestors fought for and why they came here. These communist Jews tell us they are not here, are real, and that it all well. Yet all over and over they expose our children to war, violence, sexual perversion, violent crimes in prisons or old field, and billions wasted on no evident so-called war on drugs. Folks ought to know that the real big guys who finance all the hundreds of thousands of pounds of drugs used in America weekly don't get caught. Jews and Jews finance and profit off of the pharmaceutical mega corporation who target the youth and senior citizens. Think, people, does it sound right that our young go hungry, our old without money for medicine? We have ghettos all over America, horrendous problems in our country, which have needed our care for decades. Yet we send multi-billions to foreign Jews, Muslims, and to terrorists who kill our own young soldiers. I want my tax spent here in America by non-communists. I don't believe government propaganda, other lies. I believe our country has a cleaner soul and thrive to be pure, better. We should lead in positive direction, teach betterment of man, of Jesus Christ, of examples set by the 10 Commandments. God established law. This is what a true Aryan believes. I do not want my pure Aryan bloodline mixed with cursed Jewish blood or blood of other races or nationalities. I do not want communist bloodline mixed in with my pure Aryan blood. I continually stated this, and it should be a rule for all of any bloodline with Aryan quality. You put all this down word for word. When the wonderful pure Aryan Christian brothers suggested I call my book the Aryan Bible, I said, no, don't compare me with our Lord's holy book. But for our Aryan race, it's pure worth as scripture, advice, and true guidelines. I'm passing this stuff down. It's old school, pure American wisdom. Question, is this your basic message, the plot of this book? Answer, it is a central plot, yes. But there's lots of things to support what I say, and I'll prove my answers. I proved a federal government, FBI, CIA cover-up. I'll prove I was sent to every location King was at in any major civil rights event. You think I was without a leader, a sponsor? I've had Pentagon records and government access for decades. I could prove an underground of true American Caucasians that are alive and active to save America. Everyone will see. They'll remember Edgar Ray Killen forever, a true Aryan warrior. You'll see. Just write the book. Events will make it a top seller. Question. Tell me about the communists, the CIA, the FBI involvement, trying to break the case. Details like this. They find the bodies. They claim too. I am going to bring you up to date, going back years and years when Russia was its strongest, when the Cold War was raging. If it had not been for Senator Eastland, the government agent sharpshooter would have assassinated me, like Ruby Ridge Mountain. James, stayed at the top and never dealt with agents on the ground or in the field. I could get tapes and transcripts of their investigations anywhere and on any name of an agent. Questions and answers of who they interviewed on what date and hour. I did not guess about what they were doing and they asked me how I knew about so much. They paid witnesses to testify at the 1967 trial. They turned the mafia into the government agents, snitches who told on true America. Question: was Senator James Eason your mentor and sponsor, and are there records of your relationship? And are there records of your relationship and dealing? Answer: don't you know that not once were my home property records or anything searched? Amazing for someone so wanted and hunted. I guarantee there's letters of receipts of just records when Jim and I were together. I went in the Pentagon, that's surely on record. Payroll and assignments of agents in 1954 still exist. I'll bet the Clarion Ledger didn't subpoena any of that. There are records of money paid to Martin Luther King, to the ACLU by the government about the Jews. Son, there was over 5,000 true Aryans, a tightly united group of Southern leaders at every political rally ever held at the Neshoba County Fair. That was the central gathering spot for our boys once a year, supportive of the Caucasian belief. We had our cameras and our investigations in our own lobbies. Until about 1999, we were the sole speaking for the Southern citizens. We had Strong, James, and other good ones like Stennis. Even Lott knows how the blacks have let the state fall apart. Barber, a token white kind, but all his departments are led afield by blacks, especially in Jackson. The news says our programs are worst ever investigated. It's a shame. Just here in Central Mississippi Correctional Facility, the guards and staff population is 95% black. Do you think I or any white man get treated equal and fair as the blacks? Half the inmates are related to them. You were beaten. It was covered up. You know better than anyone. That's why we wanted Neshoba County left white. Even our blacks were happy. Old Barber got rich off tobacco and for money connected to his relatives and associates connected to it. He hides it when questioned, and a dumb public just goes along. He got rich off of lung cancer and big tobacco. Did I or any other citizen? Did I employ my whole family with Mississippi money for its people? Barber knows that Jim Hood is a queer, and believe me this, they are enemies. Hood would get to be the governor of stuff sensationalized, like my case. He's a small man who doesn't have the mental capacity to see the big picture. It's a good chance he won't live to be governor. Too many real Aryan brothers hate him and will kill or die for justice. He needs it. He's vermin. I'm not proud to have a homosexual in our state government, a state full of gambling casinos, selling dreams, siphoning off every dollar with its vices, alcohol, and ruining families, and it's all been of sensory falsity. I am not proud that America has removed the 10 Commandments from courthouses and denies prayer in public schools. I'm one that fought these things, and I pray that others behind me will triumph this cause as I did. If gambling is legalized more and more, those monies will go into organizations, syndicates, which black politicians can get what they want. More gambling, more alcohol sales, more nudity and pornography, all vices, addiction, all put on the South by the philosophies of communist Jews and those who want to destroy the character of the South and nation. The heritage we leave our children are towns built on corruption of morals, values, and righteous lifestyle. Nowhere but Mississippi would allow my judge to do my trial. We were lifelong acquaintances. He threatened to get me for going to his dad's funeral and reminded me of this threat at my trial. Is that justice? That is what they shall call that movie of lies, Mississippi Justice. How? Question. You mentioned Lyndon Johnson and Kennedy in your meeting with LBJ. Answer. Lyndon Johnson was the worst turncoat on the South. He lived in fear for his life, not from the Klan, but from the Kennedy Mafia. He was up under John F. Kennedy, and his only hope to the presidency was to get Kennedy to Dallas, in LBJ's home state. In 1964, Senator Eastland said he really didn't have Kennedy killed until Johnson and I had a head-on. No kidding. He almost had a heart attack. LBJ and ordered the FBI to put me back in jail until he said I could be released. The acting FBI director called Jim Eastland and told him what Johnson ordered. On Thanksgiving Day, 1964, I told LBJ agent that he wasn't going to be able to go deer hunting because Mrs. Oswald would not let him have the rifle back. He went crazy. Eastland said he believed he had Kennedy killed after that accident. Oswald was alleged to have shot Kennedy, and I never believed that he did. Ruby shot Oswald, and Ruby died by the CIA to keep his mouth shut. Question. Did you know Ruby or Oswald or any convicted of civil rights or government killings? I'll say this. I knew Bobby Cherry and saw him days before he allegedly killed Evers. That's another cover-up, and he was given the job by his sponsor. Question. You say the communists were involved in your prosecution. Explain. Answer. There was a minimum of a dozen Jews at my trial. 3 testified. They were from New York, Oregon, and Chicago, Illinois. I don't call them communists unless the Justice Department lists them as such because of their work. The ACLU had been started and financed by communist Jews. All major news media is owned, stock held, and controlled by the Jews. The largest banks are owned and operated by communist Jews. They control the wealth of the world. The communists never forgave me or Nixon, and they got Nixon, and I am familiar with that. They got me, I am aware. Look what they did to the news media. I am explaining their hatred here. The communists are using the blacks to wipe the white race out and are doing a great job of it. Question, did you know President Nixon? Yes, I met him on several occasions. I'll tell you stories on this and more. Question, why did you become a suspect? Answer, we had a native Mississippi man who was a communist, Buford Posey. He lied on quite a few in Neshoba County. They sent him to lead demonstrations all over the South. They were called the USA Party. He got run out of Florida and was threatened to be killed if he returned. Months later, he was told that he had to return, and another party member went with him. He told him he had a congressman who would help him. They went to my double second cousin and left his communist comrade in the waiting room. This was Congressman Arthur Winstead. When Posey said he wanted out of the Communist Party, the senator called the FBI. Posey faked a heart attack and was taken away on a stretcher to save him. They turned him into a pimp. He did lose his citizenship in the Neshoba County Court. He told the FBI that he had information that I would kill him, so they did not want me to bother their pimp. I had not talked to or made any threats to him. They had Posey listed as a witness in my trial. But Hood got afraid to bring him because he was so hated in Neshoba County. He had been hated there since back then. Question, how did law enforcement treat you back then? Was your home searched? Answer, my home was never searched. The FBI tried to bug the place by breaking in. We ran them off. Understand, I was the pastor to the following county sheriff and constable back then. Neshoba County, Newton County, Lee County, Lauderdale County, and Kemper County. The other counties surrounded us had sheriffs who were great friends of mine. I had no problem with them. Question: when were you first arrested? Answer: in 1964, December 4th. I was kidnapped against my will by the FBI and taken to Meridian Naval Station, a military base. They threatened to bring a SWAT team to beat me up. They pointed guns at my head and said I would be killed within the hour. They wanted me to work with them to solve the case. They offered me $8 million. A Colorado ranch stopped with high-blooded registered horses and would keep my checking account over $1 million for the rest of my life. I could carry all my relatives and none would have to work again. All I had to do was tell them how to break the case, and I would never hear any more about it. Question: you mentioned Vietnam causing problems for the South. How? Answer: in early 1964, LBJ called in director of the FBI and CIA and ordered them to get something going on in the South to draw the minds of the public off of Vietnam. Those were Johnson's own words I heard. Said that goddamn war was ruining him politically. They were supposed to have Swerner and Goodman under 24-hour surveillance because they were members of the American Communist Movement. They and their family were party members and workers. Anyway, they started a big issue in the South. Question: you mentioned Richard Nixon. Can you explain? Answer: some 6 years ago, there was a young man named Richard Milhouse Nixon from California. He was anti-communist. Some of his people in California informed him of the communist spies in California. He had trouble getting our Justice Department to act. He would not give up. Finally, the FBI found microfilm in a pumpkin patch where the Russian agent KGB could pick them up. They sent the Russians home and tried a man named Chambers and used Alger Hiss as a turncoat or partner in crime. They convicted Chambers and sent him to prison. Both of these were communist Jews, and communists began with a communist Jew, Karl Marx. It was proved that when Chambers and Hess were in New York, they stayed at the home of Goodman and Swerner. Those two names are the names of the two who testified at my trial and were the names of the two of the murdered Jews. Those facts prove that our government has certified these families are communists and tried them. So they were against us, were our enemies, sworn enemies of our nation and our citizens. This year, Mr. Goodman, Mrs. Goodman, and Mrs. Cheney both died. So they will not give me any more problems unless I go to hell and they are there running it. The CIA was supposed to have them under 24-hour surveillance. How could someone kill them with the CIA watching? Lots of questions there. The heat was on the CIA to explain where they were and why they did not see who did this. Question: what about Ronald Reagan? Answer: I like Ronald Reagan and never did see one of his movies. Reagan was a right-wing Republican, Roosevelt style. When the communists took control, he could not get the FBI to investigate. So he, John Wayne, and Jimmy Stewart spent their own money and rooted them out. All three were rednecks, and I liked them. Question: why didn't the feds prosecute you then? Answer: they had only hearsay, no evidence. All witnesses were given $3,000 to $6,000 to testify. Nixon had the Justice Department make the federal court drop the charges, and they did in a morning session of court at 8 a.m., recessed before 9, and left the courthouse before the media arrived. This was never in the news. Then all real Americans hated communism, but groups like the ACLU had made sure communists could do whatever or say whatever to destroy the country. For a long time, it was okay to fight and kill communists. But the communist Jews made it all out to be a religious right. They tricked us big time and still are. Just looking at our country, they are destroying it. They forced the blacks into ghettos and housing project slums. They forced them into crime and drugs. The proof is everyday fact. Already the newspaper are reporting a recession and decline in home sales. Within a year, we will be in a deep recession. Jobs will become scarce, crime will get much worse, and drugs more prevalent and accessible to our youth. The ACLU will continue to get God out of the country's constitution and will continue its ruination of all our founding fathers came here for. One day, our heathen Jews, communists, and non-believers will face the great judge, and he will punish them throughout eternity. I pray that he will let me be their jailer and punisher. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. We'll start up at chapter 7 on the next go round. All right, it's at the end of the chapter. Yeah, so that's getting to be close to halfway. So a few more sessions. I figure if we do an hour or so every session, that'll keep my voice intact for the next day and stuff like that. Because we ain't in no hurry to get it done. Yeah. Yeah, get it done well is what. Okay. Okay, well then that's what Laura was saying, my agent. You know, she'll probably give you a call and she had a few suggestions and things for you by the time we get finished. So she'll call you at some point in time. But you know, we got quite a ways to go now though. Right. Yeah, she said you would be able to do that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On the JFK, on the assassination, new stuff, new information and stuff by Ted Carper, Francis Ford Coppola. Yeah, okay, yeah, he did. I think he did, Fred Coppola. Yeah, so the CIA was kind of plotting against Kennedy. That's what they were saying. Yeah, so a lot of what Edgar Ray is saying in the book is coming out now. Could have fit. What he was saying about the Jews and the CIA and the FBI and all of that. And LBJ was in it too and all that. Yeah. It's amazing that people can have, the wool pull over their eyes so easily in these days and times. The media. Okay. The media. Okay, that's the way the Nazis got in control over it. Uh, yeah. So the media is the one that where you have the power at. Whoever control the message, control the people. Hey, oh, uh, uh, the no smoking ban. Well, I hadn't thought about it like that, but if you own your own property and business and they say people can't smoke in your business and on your premises and stuff, that is seem to be taking away your one of your freedoms, right? Okay, it was easy. They okay, you can't smoke because that's bad, so you wouldn't get too much pushback on it. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, is to be able to do these things. Yeah, seatbelt laws too. Yeah, so he dad said when they start using a mandatory seatbelt in your yeah, and then ticketing people for not using it. I don't think I ever got ticketed, but I've seen them do have ticketed people, but they claimed that it was for to save lives. You gotta act like you doing it for the people. Communism, right? It's an evil thing. Communism is just a different word than socialism. For socialism. Yeah. Yeah, you remember, back during the 50s and the 40s, a lot of the movie actors became communists. And, one of my writers that I used to portray in the Mississippi Writing Guild, Richard Wright, he became a communist and moved in, and he said it was almost just for protection, just to keep from getting victimized by the whites. He had to do it. Yeah, the more control that the government has. So that's what socialism is, to have all the citizens depending on the government. Yeah, everybody. Yeah, everybody gets the same insurance. Everybody gets the same food on the plate. Everything is the same. Yeah, yeah. Even with socialism, there will still be people above other people. The Catholic Church. Yeah, now that's definitely a hierarchy from the Pope down to the cardinals, on down to the vice president. And so if you compare the Catholic hierarchy with the United States hierarchy, uh, yeah, part of the machine, and they get rewarded for that. So the local city government is the foot of the state government and the federal government. Uh, the toes of it. Yeah, that makes sense. 9 times out of 10, money will win an election. Advertising, TV, pamphlets, and all this influence people to get their vote. Yeah, where the Hollywood people went to the communists that way, now they going to the left extreme in the Democratic way. The trans movement, the LBJ. Oh yeah, yeah, that's exactly right, because Right. See, that's the only protection they had because, like Richard Wright, he was outspoken about. He grew up in the South. He had wrote about it and everything, and he thought he should get a little respect. See, but they still wouldn't give him any respect, so he had to go with the Communist Party. And you take, for instance, now, like Kanye West, for instance, a billionaire today and half a billionaire the next day because of something he said about the Jews. And Edgar Ray is 30. Back then, he stood telling people that the Jews is the one that's running things. That's what his belief was. And then you see today that you can't really say too much about the Jews. Alice Walker, yeah, the writer, Color Purple, right. Okay, she's being inducted into the Mississippi Hall of Fame in Mississippi. Right, you did a Zoom call with her? Okay, okay. Oh, she got in some heat too about, mentioned something about the Jews. Uh, so the board didn't even want to talk about it, about the Jews. Yeah, yeah, I know. That's the reason I want to get it done, before anybody come in to try to listen to it and get it all done. Because today, even the Jews, uh, they have a lot of power and a lot of money, and it's just naturally, if you got the money, you can do a lot of things that you want done. And what happens? Yeah, that's why they call it the governor's studio. The governor wanted to have it. And this is a state-of-the-art studio, too. It was Bryant, Governor Phil Bryant. They mentioned him yeah, I think he did mention him one time in there so far. Yeah, yeah. But once we get the book out, and then I was just noticing while reading it that a lot of the things he's saying about the recession, about the blacks, and the way that they're becoming like heathens. What could be more heathenistic than shooting in each other's homes and killing each other's brothers and just killing each other like they do here. And even here in Meriden, this is just a little old hick town here, and they killing each other constantly down here. You say that the per capita, okay, is that, yeah, that is amazing. He said that the population in Mississippi have more crime perpetrated against each other than the big cities like Chicago and all of those things. And yes, south side of Jackson, and I know they used to be, but Meridian wasn't too much into that. But now they're almost identical to Jackson's crime. the hub now. Right. Yeah, because it is a split place. You can go to Lar, you can go to Hattiesburg, you can go to Jackson, and go to. A big white. So he was a big white man in business, but a big drug dealer, trafficking drugs back and forth. And the government kind of let him get away with it. Yeah, and always you don't want to expose the big people, so they'll sacrifice him to keep. Drug trade, human trafficking coming through Berea. Yeah, right, right. And the gang members would be uh, up for getting recruiting too. See, yeah, nah, welfare. Oh yeah, and see, yeah, and even when they even even when they subsidize the black race, like here in Mississippi, the white supremacists, they end up with the money. Like Brett Favre and Phil Bryant and all of them. I don't understand it. Then nobody says anything about it. Nobody does anything about it. Get just enough. They might want to do more. Right. They stick right there. Yeah. So that so the blacks there in Mississippi, they get enough subsidy from the government so that they can't really raise above the condition. They have to stay right in the project. They have to stay right in the ghetto. That's because that's the only way that they can thrive. Yeah, the Democrats coming. Yeah, right. Cause yeah, because that's what the Democrats did in '64, I think it was, when they said, "Oh, we'll give the females money and food stamp for the kid, but the father cannot live in the house. Now that was the most irrational thing that you could do to a race of people, because without the father figure, they run crazy just like the blacks are now. The teenagers killing each other. When they had fathers in the home back when I was a kid coming up, didn't know blacks kill each other. I mean, they didn't. You might have a fist fight or something like that, but never would you find anybody that hated each other enough to want to kill each other. But these kids, these blacks today, I mean, they're vicious. They will shoot in your house, shoot your kids down, shoot your little kids down. And that has become because they had no mentors, no father figures when they was born into the world. Because a mother can't raise a teenage son. She just can't do it. Yeah. Yeah, the HUD housing. Yeah, and that's true, because they've got a program like that the government brought down there. They gave them $10 million, and they're gonna train these 80 black kids from out of the poor part of Meridian, and have them to come to a training group every week, and gonna give them a stipend, gonna give them a little money. So they think that this is going to stimulate them to get up every morning, get ready to come down every morning. But see, that's not gonna do it, because these kids, their brain is not programmed for getting up doing something every day consistently. They won't go to school. That's what that would be like. Mhm. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And when your kids, yeah, yeah, the kids don't have to earn nothing. I mean, they don't have any chores to do at all. They can get up and get right into their phone. They don't have to make up the bed. They don't have to take out the garbage. They don't have to clean, wash the dishes, nothing. Because their parents let them get away with that. They don't put down some rules, and that ruined these kids. And then they watching these kids on their phones and stuff that's making this money, that's living this high lifestyle, hardly doing nothing, it looks like. And they want that, see, and that's all they concentrate on. If you tell them, say, look, you need to go out here and get some training so that you can fall back on this. It's the same way with the sports, the black sports jock. They come out of high school, they're good football players and everything. They came out of high school playing football, and they can't hardly read. Now, they send them to college. They run the football and they play the basketball. They didn't get an education coming. They wouldn't force them to get an education coming. Now they get in college, and it's really hard to learn it up there. Matter of fact, they're not going to be able to learn it. So they just ease them on through some kind of way until they get into their sophomore year, and then they put in for their pro league. Yeah, if they make it. But once that they get in there and they get to be a sophomore, where they can proclaim they want to get into the NBA and the NFL, then that's all they want, because they think that if they get a pot full of money, they get their money, all their problems will be over with. When only it just begins, because out of that money, now you're gonna have to go back and try to take care of all of the loafers you got in your family, all of the people that's on welfare and stuff. They want to spend big money and they don't know how. And next thing you know, this individual have gotten cut from the team, or either got hurt and can't play anymore, and now he don't have a college degree to fall back on, because he didn't go all the way through the process. So him not progressing in college, and then once he gets to the pros and don't make it, and then get kicked out for some reason or another, then he back out here on the street. All that time been wasted for nothing. But then you compare them with the white kids that go to college. They playing football and basketball, get a scholarship. They don't come out early. They don't go to the pros early. They go, you might have a quarterback. If he's a good white quarterback, he may come out. But the rest of them, the linebackers and all of them that make it after they get out of college, they get a college degree before they come out of it. Because their family have told them, say, hey, you going to college to get a degree. We know the football will always be there. And then if you play football, you may make it and you may not. But you'll always be able to have this college degree to fall back on. The blacks don't do that. They don't see that. That's where the rationale of the white race takes care of their kids when they get into college. And the black family, they don't have that rationale, and they can't influence their kids to do this. Yeah, they offered them the money to get the father out the house. And that was the ruin most of the black American race there. And ever since then, the young blacks is filling up the prisons. I mean, it was ridiculous. I worked in the prison for 11 years, and they filled it up with teenagers and young adult blacks, and some of them was getting 60 and 70 years. And it's just sad. It's just so sad that the black race is, and I wrote a couple of books on it, but they don't want to read my books because it's the genuine truth about what the real issue really is. The gangs are running the prison. Yeah, and that's what they do. When they send these teens to prison, they either have to get in the gang, or either they get victimized all the way through. So, and then once they go in, there's no rehabilitation in the beginning. They talk about rehabilitation. These kids, they ain't been habilitated. They learn how to be in the gang, and then that's failure all the way down. Because if you're in a gang, you're gonna fail, you're gonna be killed, you're gonna be in prison most of your life, and then you're gonna come out and they'll call you an OG. You just walking around hustling in your old age life. No Social Security to fall back on, because you didn't work anywhere. And you just out there in society trying to pick whatever scam you can use to take care of your family with. And the cycle just repeats itself over and over. Yeah, that's all they know. The Philadelphia tornado. You saying that at the Philadelphia Tornado, there's not about 3 whites in the whole school? 10th, 11th, 12th grade. So that means that the integration did not apply. The Shoba Central, but then you have to be out in the address out there. And most of the whites live out there in those suburbs. So the whites that have their kids in that school out there that don't live out there, they'll get an address out there in that area. And that's all that you have to show is the address and stuff. Yeah, so she was born in Montana, and now she's 17, going down to almost an all-black school down in Philadelphia. For all. One out of 3 white in the whole school almost. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. The core belief. Yeah. No, because if she was white girl, 17, at the all-black school and wanted to date a black guy, that would be, everything would be almost against them from the beginning. Because the black guy, he probably don't know who he is or why he's who he is. And then she may know who she is and who she is. And like you said, the core belief of either one of them could be totally different. No, the black girls, they're already inferiority of white girls anyway. And for her to come in and get one of the football players on the team, no, the black girls wouldn't be comfortable with that. Uh, yeah, Southern Baptists, both black and white, you go to them, they teaching different things, although they got the same doctrine. Different things apply to blacks, different things apply to the whites. Yeah, that was really rational the way the white teenager handled it with the football. After they talked, they found out their core beliefs was not lined up and they became friends, and they probably grew from that. They probably grew from that. But you can't do it. I mean, white and blacks are so different in the way that they are raised, and the way that the conduct and the belief and what they learn coming up, until it's almost impossible for them to. Because not only that, I always tell them that if you white and you black and you want to marry into a family, you're not just marrying a white person, you're marrying the whole family. And it might be some races in that family. I know it's gonna be some races in the black family, because you can't help but to be a racist if you're black and were born in Mississippi. Yeah. Yes. Yes, and that's why I tell people, I say, you have to find out who you are. And a lot of people have to say, well, why are you not a racist? I say, because my mentor, he pushed all my racism to the side. You know, he got my core beliefs, and I knew, I said, I was like that. I hated white people for this and that and the other. He said, well, but you're only gonna be hurting yourself, and you're only gonna suffer yourself in the end. And say, you're not gonna be really happy. And I say, and look at all the white people you're gonna have to deal with out there. I said, you just can't go through hating, and that, for the first time, it made sense to me. And so he said, well, I'll show you. And he showed me how to not be a racist, but you don't have to like every white person you say, but you got to be able to love them like you want to be loved. You got to treat them like you want to be treated. And if you can't do that, then you don't have any business trying to be in a relationship with another race of people. And that's just not white. That's every race of people out there. Yeah, a race. This is two white men talking about issues. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's two individual people, one a racist and one try to be good guy, Christian and stuff, but they are bringing all the rest of the world into that. Yeah, yeah, as long as they keep it at their conversation, it can be done. It can be done, so. All right then, I think we'll end it right here. Okay. All right. All right. So how much y'all you think?
Oh, just an hour.
Just out of the 25?
Yep. I've been recording our conversations afterwards, just in case we want to ever. Well, there might be some
Okay.
about the book.
Oh, you,
And
me and you
convers-
can get, you got both of them in there? Me and you? You
Yeah,
get
both of
them?
us chatting.
Yeah, well, that's good, that's good.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's gonna be some historical stuff along down, because once my other books get out, the Niggas Holy Bible and the black and white race rationale, why these two races behave the way they do, you know, it's gonna, yeah, all of that's gonna be significant, and that we talked about. You know, that'll be just like me and you talking like Ray and Larry was talking to you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
can
this-
you get that off of there for me?
If you, yeah. At some point, if you do this, grab the phone and I'll pull these apart. If you, release this